So welcome everyone to the timebank.org's town hall, and happy new year to you all. This is our first call of 2022. Just some information, our town hall calls provide a space for all TimeBank members to foster connectivity through sharing each other's stories. When we share our stories, we are moving the movement and creating a more global community. I still keep getting goosebumps about this. So we hope to provide a safe place to share our thoughts and dreams, and where everyone is welcome and heard. Just a little background. Timebanks.org is a TimeBank community hub that offers resources, TimeBank software, monthly town halls, TimeBank training, and ongoing outreach to meet the needs in our communities. We want to move the movement, as you're all a part of this movement, and now we're together. It feels like family to me. We're really excited to continue this series, but we do want to first remind you that we are recording the call. I've already started the recording, so just please be aware of this if you share any personal information. My name is Abby Greer. I'm with timebanks.org, the timebanks.org team. And I also started a TimeBank here in Kent, Ohio in 2010, and it was the most miraculous journey of my life. I'm still a member, although I've retired from the leadership, and I love being with the timebanks.org team because I feel like it's the next level up for me in understanding time banking and maybe how to start a time bank and get people motivated. That's sort of in my wheelhouse, and marketing, so you'll see me around. But I just feel really honored to be a part of this team. I also want to introduce our other members of our team, so I'm just going to have you give a big, huge wave. First of all, our executive director, Krista Wyatt, give a wave, say hello.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us.
We also have Pam De Ocampo. She's letting people in the waiting room, waving.
Hi guys.
Thank you, Pam. And Eric Bachman, waving there from Vermont. Very cold Vermont today, I understand. And here today also is our co-chair, Kathy Perlow. Kathy, give a wave. There she is. So glad you're here. So just real quick, a friendly reminder that this call has been a safe place where we hear each other's stories with no judgment. And of course, this is a group call, so we don't try to recruit others to take any action in other agendas, but just to share our time banking stories and help move the movement. If you are a coordinator of a time bank and you're seeking knowledge about managing a time bank, we do suggest that you join the Time for All Time Bank. Pam, if you could write that timebanks.org, Time for All timebanks.org. It's a global time bank designed specifically for coordinators. And we also host a monthly coordinator call, which is more nuts and bolts, helping sharing our resources on how some of us have had experience with managing and running a time bank. So last year, we focused on our 5 core values. For every core value, we spent 2 sessions, 2 months on each core value, and heard so many wonderful stories from members of time banks, as well as leaders, people around the globe sharing what they've done in their time banks. But this year, we want to hear more stories about sowing the seeds of friendship and connections in our local time banks. We want to hear how you met friends. We want to hear and share some funny stories for 2022. We all could use some funny stories. And we'd love to see pictures of you and your exchanges, or your new friends, your old friends. You could send them to us. Krista, I was going to ask if info@timebanks.org is the right place to send a picture. So great. In a few minutes, well, maybe 10 minutes or so, we're going to be seeing a wonderful little slideshow, which is an ongoing slideshow that I'm making. And I would love to have your story. And if you could get a picture of you and your friend with permission, I'd like to add you to this slideshow, which will historically be just a collection of friends that we've met because of time banking. So we're going to start today's call out by turning the call over to Pam on our timebanks.org team. She has a wonderful slideshow presentation of Edgar Kahn's garden. We all know who Edgar Kahn is. He wishes he could be here right now. He's in rehab, but he's going to see the recording. So I'm super excited about that. And she also has some wonderful words from Chris Gray about a metaphor about how time banks grow. So Pam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Abby. Oh gosh, hold on. My computer's starting to restart.
Go figure. Do you want a few minutes?
All right, I stopped it. Okay, let me share my screen. Let's see here. Can you see my screen?
We sure can.
Awesome. So we thought we'd share these photos from Edgar's garden and also share a little bit about how Chris and Edgar started time banking. So in the beginning, they pretty much just went out far and wide and spread these seeds of time banking. It wasn't in a linear fashion or strategic way, although they've had many strategic, planning sessions after. They just went out organically. It was a very organic process. They just followed their instincts and went where they were called and spread these seeds. And so, yeah, we thought it was a beautiful metaphor because now here we all are, where all the flowers that bloom from the seeds that they spread all these years ago. And here we are. And just a little bit of a quick share. So we had a retreat to have like a strategic planning session for time banks. This was around 2009. And just think about it. I think Abby's time bank started in 2010 after that. So like you just never know what's going to grow from these seeds, today even. We don't know who might show up, and it's just beautiful that here we all are, indirectly or perhaps directly working with each other, all called to Edgar's vision. Just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you so much, Pam. And I love, we've pretty much coined her story of Chris's words in this metaphor, 1,000 seeds. So you're going to hear that over this program today a few times, 1,000 seeds. And that's so meaningful and such beautiful pictures. Thank you so much. Somebody typed in the chat, Pam, that it was beautiful. I'm just so excited. When did they start time banking? Good question. Pam, do you know, actually, Time Banks USA, before timebanks.org, same organization, what year they started?
So Time Banks USA started, I believe, 1995, but I think the first grants were received in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know that Edgar came up with this idea as he was lying in a hospital bed, recovering from a heart attack, feeling very useless. And he said, geez, how can I not feel useless? It's such a good story. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We're going to jump right over to Carrie. We are going to open the call to hear your stories. So do if you've got something you'd like to share for a couple minutes, you could put it in the chat. Carrie's going to share something, and then we have a little slideshow from my time bank members at Kent Community Time Bank about 1,000 seeds. So Carrie, if I could turn it over to you, and if you're able to share your screen as you need, I think we've got a wonderful celebration today from a member in her time bank.
Great. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Do you all see a picture of a woman on your screen?
Yes.
Excellent.
Florence.
Yes, this is Florence. You can read her name tag. We always do name tags at our get-togethers. I'm Carrie. I am from Southern New Mexico, and I coordinate a time bank here called the Mesilla Valley Time Bank. And we've been in existence since April of 2016. So we're going on, I guess, 6 years almost. And I want to share a special friendship story today about Florence Hamilton. And you see Florence here. We're going to watch a very short clip from her in 2017. So this was actually our get together right before Halloween. And she is a storyteller. And I'm just going to play a clip of her introducing her story so you get a sense of who she is and what she's like a little. And then I'll explain why today is a good day to sort of share about Florence and the impact she's had on time banking in Southern New Mexico. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the video, and you don't have to listen for anything in particular other than her beautiful humanity.
Cemeteries was fine. But I'm going to tell a story that's a little old, way old, where we're still using candlelight for light. So you can tell about how old that is. And this old man with his daughter lived just outside of New Orleans.
So that's a very quick sense of who Florence is. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you again, everybody. But why is Florence so important to our time bank and to the friendships we formed? Florence was one of our initial charter members. Back in April 2016, our organization, Doñana Communities United, had an idea that as a way to further our work in advancing health equity, we would form a time bank. We really didn't have any clue how to do that. And I was working with 2 students at the community college who were interning, and we just thought, you know what, we'll hold an orientation. And we had run into a friend of mine at the post office, and he was helping Florence go to the post office. And so he introduced us. And I, tell everybody about everything we do. And it takes, maybe 5% of the time that, somebody will actually take you up on it. And Florence looked at me and she said, that sounds really interesting. I think I'd like to do that. And so one of the other people who came to that first orientation picked her up because she no longer drives, and brought her, and she and that person and 2 others were our first members of our time bank. And so what ended up happening, we formed our time bank, and as it grew, we were looking for a way to sort of bring people together. And I was asking members, this is a couple of months in, I said, does anybody have a project that's sort of a big project that maybe we could all get together and work on? And Florence looked at me and she said, well, I do have kind of a big project. I need to move. And I said, Florence, that's a really big project. We would love to work with you on that. And she opened her home to all of us to go, and you know how moving works with the time bank. It's a group affair. Everybody's wrapping things up and organizing things and putting things in boxes and moving them out and then moving them to the new place and unwrapping. And it was just a glorious time. And Florence took the jump and said that she would go about doing that with us. So I really credit her almost for getting the energy going to actually see time banking in reality so other members could get a sense for what it was. We now have nearly 400 members. And in fact, and this is the reason I may cry, Florence just celebrated her 100th birthday yesterday. And so I was hoping she'd be able to be with us today, but she is exhausted, as you might imagine, from that celebration. She had family coming in from all parts of the country, and her family held a reception, which we, as the time bank, were special participants and assistants with that reception. And what I'd like to do is show you a couple of the photos of Time Bank members with Florence at the reception, so you can get a sense of some of the friendships that she has fostered in our Time Bank here. So let me go back to share my screen, and I'm going to share just quickly 3 photos of 3 very different people, which I think is really fun because, you know, when you look at time banking, you hope that not everybody's all the same. And in our case, it's definitely true. Let me see if I can get this open just a second. We had probably, I'm guessing 15 or so of our members show up yesterday at this celebration for Florence. And it was indoors, which makes me a little bit nervous, as you can imagine. But I think in the end, hopefully people were pretty safe about it. It's a little hard to be sure of that, but in any case, let me show you the first photo here. Does everybody see a photo on your screen of a tall woman in a beautiful sweater?
Yes.
Okay, this is Leanne. Leanne is a very active member of our Time Bank. And she and Florence both served on the Time Bank steering committee. You can see Florence there in the lower left. She's wearing a crown and a sash, which actually says "Happy Birthday, Babe," which we got a kick out of. Anyway, Leanne and Florence got to know each other on the Time Bank steering committee and became very good friends because Leanne often provided rides to Florence to come to Time Bank steering committee meetings. And at one point, a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic, Florence fell and she broke her shoulder. And she was in rehab for many months. And Leanne visited her, I would say, several times a week, more than once for sure, and became very close to her and really became a great advocate for her and her health care and what she needed at that time, because her nearest family is an hour away. And so that became a beautiful friendship, and almost, I would say more than that, almost like a mother-daughter, mother-granddaughter relationship, which has been very beautiful. So Leanne was one of the people who was able to come yesterday. And I will say, for her to get out and about, because she also has a very challenging immune condition, to come to an indoor event was really a testament to the friendship that she's developed with Florence. So that's Florence and Leanne's friendship. Another friendship, you'll see a gentleman here hugging Florence. This is David Medina. David joined our Time Bank and is an incredible auto mechanic. I don't know if he's ever actually helped Florence with her car, but he's also a very social person, and it's been really hard for him during the pandemic because he does not do anything on the computer. And so for him to be able to see Florence and other Time Bank members yesterday was a true delight for him and for Florence. And I will say as well, Florence is somebody who has worked her entire life for justice in many forms. And David is somebody who you would think is very much on the opposite end of the spectrum politically. And it's one of the things I love about time banking, that they have been able to develop a friendship despite their extensive differences. And I think it's just beautiful to see the love that these two friends have for each other in this photograph. And then the third photograph that I'd like to share is, you'll see here 3 folks in this photograph. We have Florence and we have Mikhail, and we have Mikhail and their service dog named Rocky. And Mikhail also has been a tremendous member of our Time Bank and our Time Bank steering committee. Mikhail does not drive, just like Florence does not drive. And so Mikhail often gets rides through the Time Bank. And Rocky, as you see here in the photograph, makes Time Bank friends wherever she goes. And so for Florence to be able to see Rocky after 2 or so years of being isolated during the pandemic, and for Mikhail and Florence to be able to reconnect, has just been a wonderful journey. Mikhail has taught all of us so much about what it is to understand different perspectives related to gender, and it's been such a growing experience for Florence in particular, and so that's been a beautiful friendship to see happen as well. I just love this photo of Rocky and Florence and Mikhail. So that is a little bit about Florence. And the last thing I'd like to say, you know, at first her friends were very worried about her participating in the Time Bank. They said, oh, it's not safe. You don't know any of these people. How can you work with them? And Florence, of course, proved them wrong. And many of them came on to join the Time Bank after that. Florence has been a true friend to everybody. And I'd also like to say she shares a birth date with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And to me, that is just a testament as well to the power of time banking and what it has meant to her in her life to be able to carry on his legacy. So thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about Florence.
Oh, Carrie, thank you so much. And I know I'm thinking, okay, could we all just be like, happy birthday, Florence, right now? Give Florence like 2 up because I know we're muted.
Yay.
Yes, I think Samantha wrote in the chat, hey, you're supposed to get a letter from the president. I hope she got one, but I also hope that she could see this video and maybe we all just wish her a very, very special happy birthday. I'm very proud to know her a little bit through you, Carrie, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you all for the opportunity.
So we just have a few more minutes of programming. We have a little slideshow that we made through the Community Time Bank members that I'm going to show you, and then we're going to open the call up. So we're going to actually have a nice bit of time. I'm hoping you're all thinking right now about a quick little story about somebody you met through your time bank. Maybe you did an exchange with them. Maybe they were on your board. Maybe they were a new member, somebody that means something to you. So we're going to open it up. First, I'm going to show this slideshow. I think it's about 4 minutes long, and I have some very meditative music that's a little sleepy, but it's kind of nice. So let's hope I can share my screen appropriately. Share sound. Thank you, Eric. Share screen too. Thank you, Eric. Eric is our IT guy, by the way. So I'm going to get this started. Please tell me because I can't see. Okay, something paused. No pausing. Okay, sorry.
Hey, Abby, we're not seeing a slideshow.
Okay, hang on. Oh, I see what's happening. Okay. Better? All right. Okay. Well, the music is just kind of everywhere.
You can see.
All right, everybody can see the show?
Yes.
I'm having to do the music through YouTube, so it's not exactly perfect. Everybody okay? You can see? Oh, so when I'm over there, it pauses. Sorry. Sorry for the little glitches. Oh, Diana, we just moved to Southeast Ohio near Wheeling, West Virginia. Wonderful. Welcome to Ohio. Okay. Oh, the music. Hold on, let's stop that.
That was beautiful, Abby. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, I just put it on Facebook, and all our members love to share, like they're so proud of the fact that these are their lifelong friends now, that they feel they would not have met had it not been for time banking. And I'm hoping we'll hear some more stories here. Okay, I keep doing that. So thank you for watching my little slideshow. I'm working on it, and there is a whole nother segment because I'm collecting slides from around the globe, which might mean you guys, if you have a picture, I'd love to put it in the next slideshow. We've collected some, but I need a few more good slides. Thank you, Carrie. I know the kayaking, the feral moms, they call themselves the feral moms. I know, I just love it. Like, who doesn't want to be in that group? So I would love to, I know we didn't get a chance to respond to Pam's story and slideshow, and then to Carrie's wonderful celebration of Florence. And if you want to respond to any of the friendships we saw in the Kent Community Time Bank, but do you have a story to share here now? We have half an hour. We would love more than anything for you to raise your hand or write in the chat. And have you unmute yourself and tell us your story. Who did you meet that maybe you wouldn't have met had it not been for time banking? Oh, hey, there's my mother. Oh, I didn't know you were here. I'm so glad you're here. You can unmute, Mom, if you want to share a story. Where'd you go?
I came back.
Oh, good.
Okay, is it easy to hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, I'll try to make this one quick. I would say maybe 4 or 5 years ago in our time bank, which has a lot of members to choose from, we made a sort of small little group out of it, and we call it the Friends Help Circle. There are about 20 people in it, and the purpose of it is that when someone has a health issue, that you could call the coordinator of that group within the group, and that coordinator with the group within the group would then coordinate all of your needs, and you don't have to text a million people about your meals and where to drop things off and all that kind of thing, and a little bit of housekeeping and companionship and all that kind of stuff. Because why should healthcare be so expensive? But I won't get into that. One of the people that's in the Friends Help Circle inside the time bank is somebody I had never met before. Her name is Holly. And she has a job she had a job as a foster care counselor, psychologist. And now the story gets a little dark, but then it will get bright again. I got a diagnosis, a very unfortunate diagnosis of ovarian cancer just before Christmas. And so, I've put together this little team of people. Some are in the time bank. Abby is clearly on the team, and the whole journey is just beginning. And so now I'm going to cry, but I decided I would call Holly because I have a teenage granddaughter, and I thought, well, she needs to talk to a counselor. And I thought of Holly because Holly was a foster care kid counselor, kind of complicated. So talked to Holly just 2 nights ago, and she doesn't have that job anymore. But you know what her job is now? You'll never guess. She's now a hospice chaplain. Yeah. Oh, wow. So I said, well, Holly, I think we're going to need maybe a hospice chaplain, whether hospice or pre-hospice, I don't know. But I'm so happy to have Holly come back into my life in that way. How did the time bank do that? How did the time bank just up and give me a hospice chaplain? I mean, just as I was thinking to myself, well, now I can't go to my church meetings anymore, and blah, 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 because of the COVID virus and all that. And should I tell the Jennifer story, Abby, or am I talking too long?
You are absolutely not talking too long because I think it's equally as miraculous. Besides Holly, the hospice nurse, is Jennifer on your team, who is pictured in the slideshow, who used to be an oncology nurse.
And I met her because she was picking up a table or dropping off a table or one of those exchanges of stuff. And we got to know each other. And pretty soon we kind of fell in love with each other. She's young, I'm old. She's like another daughter. I can't even tell you. I mean, every day we text as if we were teenagers. And she's now really, Abby's the emotional head of my oncology team, but Jennifer is the head of the medical and the giving directions team. And she's just amazing. She'll just say, no, Mary, you can't go there. Or yes, Mary, you can do that. And I just feel so blessed. I just feel so blessed. Without the time bank, I would go through this with my husband and my family. And now I'm going through it with so many people, so many people. It's just, why doesn't everybody in the world understand this? I don't know. I guess it's one person at a time, but thank you so much, all of you. And the slideshow made me cry, and your stories made me cry. Carrie, your story made me cry. That beautiful face, and Pam. Gosh. Okay. Grabbing you all. Thank you.
Aw. Thanks, Mom. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, and thanks for kicking it off, because I feel like now somebody else will share their story. I know there's a story out there. We'll just be patient.
I can share one, Abby.
Thank you, BJ.
Try to keep it quick. Hey, Mary. Golden keys everywhere. So I was having a hard time in the time bank asking for help because I thought that meant I was lazy. It just meant that I needed to do more because after all, that closet would be organized if I would just not watch as much Netflix, right? So I learned from the retreat that I went to in 2014 at Kathy Perlow's house, where I met Eric and Abby and Chris and Edgar and a whole bunch of other people, that it wasn't so much that I had to ask for help. I just had to be open to, it's not like help, because I had a thing with help. So I asked this lady to come over and sort embroidery threads. I had like hundreds of spools of embroidery threads, and I wanted to sort them into boxes instead of they were on pegboard, you know. And I could have done it myself. I decided I didn't want to. I wanted to ask for help. And Carol came over, and basically we sat down at the kitchen table, and within 5 minutes had all the embroidery threads into boxes, and we had coffee. And she became a friend. So much so that she was traveling to visit her family in Thanksgiving one year. I don't remember the year. And she fell in the night getting up to go to the bathroom and sustained a traumatic brain injury. And we had to go to Atlanta to see her. And as soon as we were able, Jim and I went to Atlanta to see her. Every time we travel now, she's had to sell her home in Florida and move up to be closer to her family. And every time we travel, we go through Atlanta so we can see Carol. And she's just a gem. And I would not have had that if it weren't for the time bank teaching me that it's okay to ask for help. You know, so Carol Bushart, my time bank friend.
Thank you so much for sharing that, BJ. And just a little teaser, there's a great picture of BJ and Jim and Carol on the next slideshow, which you can see in February. More friends around the globe. Thank you for sharing your story, BJ. I know someone else has a story. Thank you for coming, Nola, that she says has to leave now. Not been super active in Baltimore. The database is hard to navigate. Oh, please come back and we'd love to talk to you. We would love to talk to you. Thank you for coming. Who else would like to share a story about somebody you met, you may not have met if it hadn't have been for time banking through an exchange like BJ?
I've got a story about it's more like a group of people I met, because for us right now it's a really downtime. We had a few years that were very, very exciting, and we had this roving garden party. And so our activities always came out better in groups. And part of that reason was that one person who wanted help then moved on to the next person who wanted help. And this group thing made it so that nobody really felt like they were asking for help that everybody around them wasn't willing to reciprocate with. So I just want to say it was just a fantastic group of people who were always teaching each other things. And for us, we have some very pointed sustainability goals. And it worked out really well in that regard too. But right now it's just so sad. It all kind of fell apart. And part of it was my own schedule, because it seemed like if I just scheduled one, they would come. And then my own work schedule got so bad that I was falling down on that job. And it really sort of crumbled. So that's where I'm at really sadly right now with my time bank. We've been in existence since 2013. And it got really exciting in like 2017, and then 2019 totally fell apart. So I'm sad, but it's exciting to hear from you people and helping me to just have hope that we'll get there again. So
Oh,
thanks.
Sandra, I'm so glad you're here and thank you for sharing. And I do have a feeling that many time banks have really suffered through COVID. I know our own time bank, we were having potlucks every month, and that was the glue. That was the glue. And without seeing one another and looking in each other's eyes and giving each other hugs or sitting next to somebody you didn't know, it's been really hard. And I think that's not unusual. Like a lot of time banks are doing Zoom classes, which is fine. I mean, we're adjusting, that's all we've got. But I have great hope for you, Sandra, that what was there, the seeds, the 1,000 seeds are planted. And I feel like it will come back. You get a couple more people on board. And, you know, I listening to my mom, I think, oh my gosh, so many of us that started time banks thought, well, this is a cute little fun thing. And it's an alternative currency. And little did we know that it's so much more. You do embroidery threads like BJ, and you end up having a friend for life. Like, it's not just the exchange, it's just those connections, and groups are so good too. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else have a story that you met? Yay, Myra.
Yeah, I joined the time back quite a while ago, and I did have a few clients from my Reiki Healing Center, which was really nice. And you know, they would come have their sessions, and then I could never figure out how to get my, you know, what to do to get my dollars back. But it turned out that the person that came was a marketing person, and we ended up just trading with each other because it was, you know, it was how, you know, how it worked, and it was quite lovely. Our time bank is going through difficulties, I'm sure, but the one thing, the potlucks have stopped and stuff, but we have a free store, and the free store still goes. And instead of people dropping off things all the time, there'll be one day a week where you drop things off, and then there'll be one day where you can go shop. And that's the free store is just a wonderful thing. And one of my favorite things is you're allowed to take 10 things a week. So you could take a child in there and they could take 10 things and leave free, no questions. You know, they could get whatever strange thing they wanted, you know. So it's that I really enjoy. And I think the volunteers on that are very close together. And, you know, I have a lot of, we're called the Transition Town Media. So they do a lot of stuff for the environment, and we have a gardens program where you grow vegetables in your front yard and stuff. So different things for different people. I remember one of the things that happened was somebody came out to check our house to whether it was weatherized or not. And they said, our house was the draftiest house they ever met, but our utility bill was really low and they couldn't understand it, but they said, we didn't need new windows. We only needed to caulk around the windows. But then our neighbors sold their house and it had radon. And we decided not to caulk our windows because we have this free ongoing ventilation of our house. So it's, what are you gonna do? So just different people you meet, different things you do, and it's it's helpful. But I don't know what's going to happen with my hours, but I'm not that worried about it. You meet good people and you help people, and that's important.
Thank you so much for sharing. The free store is such a beautiful idea. And someone did ask how you paid for the space of your free store. Maybe where was it? Was it in a building or?
They rented a space from a church, and they had a big, when they began, the Transition Town members contributed enough money to keep the rent going for a few months. And then there's a big jar, and people, when they do come in, they're not charged for things, but people do put donations in the jar. And their only problems are hoarders and people selling on Etsy. So they have a big sign, if it's spotted that you're reselling everything on Etsy, you will not be able to come in anymore. And if you hoard, then they limit the number of pieces you can take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also had something like a free store called an Hour Exchange. And what was nice about it was it became our one location. We don't have an office. We don't have a brick and mortar, but members would come there to either bring stuff or take stuff. And it was such a nice connector. It became our office. It became like a little community room where people could see each other face to face. And again, it comes back to this COVID and how hard it is to see each other face to face. And does anybody here have a story of anybody they met new through time banking during COVID? So whether it was a Zoom class or a lesson or a phone call, has anybody met a new person during COVID through time banking? That would be a neat story.
I haven't, because they cut back the time dollars right before all this.
Well, okay, so Marcella is asking, anyone else partner with other community organizations like HOAs? Really good question, Marcella. I would love for you to stay on after. We're always stay on the call like 15 minutes after the call, and I would love to talk to you more about this. I'm not sure if you're a new coordinator, but you're asking so many good questions that remind me of me when I was starting, and we'd love to keep this particular call. We just have 10 more minutes to stories of friendship. Not so much how to run a time bank, but I'm your girl and I'm going to hook you up with a lot of people that are going to help you with those questions. All right, good. Stay on after the call. Yeah, and Diana's saying they partner with other nonprofits. So let's get back to stories because we have 10 minutes. Oh, Michael Greenman has a story of friendship.
Yeah, just something that actually just came up in the last 2 weeks. I have been in discussions with a group that is called Village in the Ville, and it's a separate organization that helps elderly in part of Columbus, Clintonville, and they have volunteers that do all sorts of things for their clients, and we'd had no contact with them. So we reached out and I met with their board and told them about the time bank, and they were interested. In fact, one of their members was a member of our time bank. So we progressed to the point where last week they joined up to become an affiliate, and several of their members are already joining the time bank. And our intent is to be able to, from the time bank itself or from their Village in the Ville affiliate, provide hours to anybody from either organization that helps people who are receiving services, who of course don't need to be members of a time bank. Then in some cases they're rather elderly. And one personal one that just came up last week, we have our Zoom church service on Sunday, and there was a young man who was in the meeting that spoke a bit and was very interested. He's disabled, disabled, and he couldn't move around too easily, but I told him about the Time Bank, as well as another organization that's a subgroup of the church. And he came to the subgroup on Tuesday, and then yesterday he joined the Time Bank and will be, and has already made some offers, and will be on the Time Bank Zoom meeting tonight, when the Village in the Ville will be presenting to all of our members about this organization. So it's a little bit of fun coordinating all of this, and I'm looking forward to this evening at 6:30. We'll have our meeting with a presentation by Village in the Ville.
That is so exciting, Michael. Thank you for sharing. I'm so glad to hear that. Really nice. Anybody else? I don't want to have to pick on anybody because I know a couple of you out there that have stories, but I'd like to maybe take a moment. Sometimes it's hard and we feel shy. I mean, I hope you feel as like family as I do in this call. I mean, obviously I couldn't get my technical thing going, and sometimes I say a bad word by accident, like all kinds of bad things can happen, but I feel like if we maybe just take a moment for someone to speak up. I'm not even going to have you raise your hand. We're just going to take 30 seconds here quietly. And if you're ready, I would have you unmute and tell your story. So we'll start that now. All right, that was 30 seconds. Now I might have to pick on somebody, and I'm going to pick on Pam. And the reason why I'm going to pick on Pam is because Pam and I do a lot of really sweet social media marketing together, and I see her tell her stories and people she's met. And I recently saw a thread with somebody you met, and you said, "Oh, I think I met you there." Can you just tell us a little bit about that person? Because I know you met them through time banking, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. I believe it was her.
Was it somebody who posted on the story? Oh yeah, Sherry.
Yes.
So, I was working with Edgar and Chris, and Time Banks USA at that time. Our office was in his house, right? And Sherry is a really, really, really good friend of Edgar's. I think she used to help with, I'm not sure if it was youth court, but it was something related to what Edgar was doing before. And she ran into some issues with life. So it was, I guess, just the most natural thing for her to go to Edgar. And so she ended up helping Edgar with his archive, like just organizing his life, right? And so she spent a lot of time at the house, and she and I became friends. We're like, it's funny. It's like you, Mary. She's, I think, in her 70s. And so she was more like my mom. But when we talk to each other, it's just like teenagers, really, like just like you, Mary. So it's just, yeah, that's how we met. And she's one of my best friends now. So.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. And just as you know, the stories may come in when we leave this call. You may say, "Gosh, I wish I would have told that story. This person really did mean something to me, but I wasn't ready, or I was feeling shy." You can email it to us. You can come on our February call. Let us know even ahead of time. We could give you a screen share. You could have your own little slideshow. And we just have a few more minutes. So two things, if Carrie doesn't get really mad at me. I want just one more quest out there for anyone on the call to share a story. And then I was going to ask Carrie if you would wrap the call up in just a couple minutes, because I just love your words and I love what you think about time banking and I love the story you shared. So if you could just in a minute give us a nice wrap up to this call about friendship and 1,000 seeds. So one more chance for anybody on the call to share a story. This is a great time, a minute, just somebody you met, why you love them, why you value them, how you met them through the time bank. Yes, Tony.
Well, since you're not talking about someone you've met during the pandemic, I mean, I have met a couple of time trading members, but the person who really got me, I joined Time Trade because my sister was in Ohio and she told me about Edgar Kahn, you know, and it sounded interesting. And then I found out there was a new Time Trade in Brattleboro, so I joined and didn't really do much. And then my house had an icicle fall through the roof, you know, from our upper story. And I didn't know this because it was freezing. But then when it started melting, there was this huge like gallon of water that was being held by the paint on my ceiling. And it was going to cost, you know, hundreds of dollars to get fixed. And I tried Time Trade, and this guy said he could help, you know, and he came up with me and we fixed the roof. And I learned, you know, some stuff about that, being a homeowner with no previous skills. And it was great. And then just last week, that same person who I've now known for 10 years, I've been trying to get a plumber. I've got another house that's much more complicated, and I've been trying to get a plumber for 3 months, and because of COVID, it's just been impossible. And so I was like, well, I'll post on Time Trade, and this same person was like, oh, well, I can do this. And I mean, it ended up being a few different jobs, and they ended up being pretty big, and I ended up paying him a lot less than I would pay a plumber. But then I also paid, you know, gave the Time Trade hours. And there was just really a circle, because he really got me to be like, wow, this is really valuable. And this is this really person who's actually probably has over 1,000 hours accrued, because he does so many different things for Time Trade. But it was nice now, 10 years later, having him help solve a problem that I couldn't figure out, and I couldn't get, you know, the professionals to do it. So that was really great.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Tony. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And I feel like if you see that person in the store, there's just another special connection there. I don't know, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're down actually to 5 o'clock. Marcella did write, and then we'll hear our closing words from Carrie. She said, I met someone from our time bank. I'm assisting her with tax preparation and building a resume and cover letter. We have yet to meet in person, but we collaborate so well together that I'm feeling she is quickly becoming my newest friend. We have only met online thus far in video sharing and editing documents together with Google Docs, conversing on the phone as we do so. We are finding we have so much in common. Yes, those are the stories, Marcella. Thank you for sharing that. And it is 5 o'clock. So Carrie, if you could just give a closing minute of what you think about meeting new people and creating these friendships through time banking, then we'll say goodbye, but we will stay on for another 15 minutes if you want to chit chat about other things. So please, Carrie.
Thank you, Abby, and thanks everybody for such a wonderful Zoom and the warmth and also vulnerability that we're shown here. I think both of those are so key to what we do in time banking. And what I would like to set everyone off with is a small challenge to think about somebody you have known already in your time bank or in the time banking movement who you haven't been in touch with for a while, and reach out to that person. Because that simple act of cultivating or rekindling a friendship or relationship is so important as we start our new year. And then the other thing I would also challenge all of us to do is to think of somebody in the time bank that you coordinate, or somebody in the movement who you'd like to get to know better, and reach out to that person as well, because really it's through fostering those existing relationships and reaching out to build more, that we're building that movement of time banking across the globe. So I hope all of you have a wonderful month, and I just am so grateful for the community.
Thank you, Carrie. What a great challenge. So maybe when we meet in February, we can say, hey, I took Carrie's challenge and this is what I did, because that's a story and we want to hear from you. Thank you all for those who shared and for listening and saying such kind words on the chat. I love this topic, 1,000 seeds, and maybe who knows, we'll make new friends before next February's call. So we'll say goodbye, but a couple of us are going to stay on. If you want to chit chat, we can decide if we want to turn the recording off or leave it on. We're going to talk about that, but see you guys in February. Thank you. Time Bank love. Thank you so much. Bye, Mom. I love you. Oh, what a nice call. So we are still recording and we're going to stay on. We found that sometimes the chit chat after the call is so rich, and we were just deciding before, geez, if we stop the recording, will it be more rich? If we don't stop the recording, will we get the richness? So what do you guys think? Should I stop the recording or should we keep it going? Does someone want to share and not be recorded? Maybe that's the question. Just unmute yourself. Oh, you want to share, Mom? And do you want me to turn the recording off?
No, leave it on. I don't care about that. That's fine. I just wanted to say, I want all these people to be my new best friend. So there you go.
Aw.
And I'm a texter. I love to text.
I'm married. Text me and we'll get ready. We'll get ready. I'm going to be up your way in May.
Okay, I'll be here.
Yes,
We'll be here. And I'll visit you. Yeah.
Abby's got my number.
Okay. And I need Carrie's email.
Yeah, Carrie is very special. Every time I see Carrie, I don't know, you just exude love and
You do.
and
You do.
joy. Yeah, and she's just smiling, and I wish you lived in my town.
Yep. I think you should all come to move to Kent. But now I've got to go because I've got to go put the frozen dinner in the oven.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye,
Bye,
Mary.
Mary.
Thank you, you guys. Thank you.
Bye, Mom. Oh,
So Neil has some logistical questions, and Marcella was going to ask some stuff too.
Are you guys okay with the recording on, or now's your chance to say, hey, turn it off. I don't want to be recorded, because I figured let's try leaving it on for the last 10 minutes of the call, but I'm happy to turn it off if someone feels they want to share something privately. No. All right. So BJ, Neil, do you want to unmute? Do you have a question? Story question?
I mostly have logistical kind of practical questions about time banks. There was the way I got connected to this is because there was a time banks effort going on in my greater neighborhood. I'm in Seattle, Washington, and I joined that. And I'm a student of money to some degree. I've done a lot of reading and research about money. I know a lot, like too much about how it works, and so I'm super interested in mutual credit and time banks. Unfortunately, the time bank effort in my neighborhood ended a few months after I joined, and I'm not entirely sure why, because I wasn't involved in the nitty gritty at that point. But I have questions about like how to. I'm really curious. I really want to make time banks and similar mutual credit currency systems work, because I think they are vitally essential, fundamentally, for many, many reasons. But I'm not sure if this is the appropriate forum for that. So if you can direct me to the correct place, I would be grateful.
Yeah, well, this is a good place to start. Sometimes with the town hall calls, we find it's a little bit of a juggling of a ball, because we have members who are experiencing time banking and feeling that love, and we're trying to move the movement, right? So we want to hear the stories, we want to hear the sharing, we want to hear the growth. And then there's another element of how to run and manage and coordinate time banks.
Mhm.
And then possibly what you're speaking about is a third element, which really has to do with alternative currencies, alternative economies. And there's been so many things written on that. And I'm not sure, I don't know if Pam, you would know if there are any networks where they're talking about alternative currencies. I mean, like, I guess I'd love to hear your questions, because right here you've got a hive mind. And if you had a question like, how does this work? What happens if you go into debt? Like, these are the people you want to ask. So may we start with a particular question about the alternative currency side and see if somebody here could answer it?
Well, my question is more logistical in the sense of how do we get time banks or a similar complementary currency to be functionally available for rent and food? I feel that those two items, rent and food, basic for everybody. And I feel that without those elements, that alternate or complementary currencies will only really be kind of a luxury currency for people who are already set. They already have a home and they already have food availability. They already have enough money somehow from where else to get the basics needs. And the people who don't have those basic needs won't have the possibility to join because it won't satisfy their core, the lowest hierarchy of the Maslow's triangle, if you know. So that's really my basic question. How do we do that?
Yeah, and I so wish Edgar Kahn was here, because Edgar would give you 25 minutes of his trajectory of how we're going to do this. Because as you were saying, rent and food, I wrote down housing, of course, is rent, education, healthcare. There's so many places that if this were a perfect world, we would have this alternative side. But I will tell you, and maybe BJ can talk about this for a minute, we've always kind of called ourselves pioneers, which we really still are, mostly because people have forgotten this way of living, this lifestyle of giving and receiving without money, without USD. But I will say that in our time bank, people have gotten housing and they have gotten food. So it starts small. It starts like, you're in my community, you're a young, single person, and now I care for you and I'm going to give you a room in my house. Or I would love for you to stay in my house so even though it's not the perfect on the plate, anybody can rent a house for time credits, it is part of joining a community where those resources are available. To me, it feels like a baby start. BJ, would you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we all can do it in our time banks right now, and many of us do, as the conversation that was just on the coordinator's idea exchange group this week about food and food banks. There was 9 or 10 time banks that said, yes, we do this already. There was a gentleman in Canada who was going to go to somebody and talk about time banks as far as food distribution. I rented for 6 years in a time bank, allowed a time banker in my home for time credits. So it happens on a small scale. And I think if we would just do it a little bit more or be a little bit more public about it, it could. But like you, Neil, the frustrating part is like, why isn't this going viral? I mean, it's just, I can't wrap my head around why people don't think this would work. So on a grander scale, and maybe it's there, maybe it's there and it's just we're at the tipping point, but it can and does happen. You just don't hear about it in the media because that's not what the media wants us to hear.
Yeah, I like to say, Neil, that, we've been, coins in your hand have been around for 3,000 years. This is what we are, I hate to say brainwashed, but there's a part of me that feels we're a little brainwashed in this capitalistic thing about money. And so now time banking presents a whole new way of looking at wealth. Like, what is wealth? So we're just, like I said, we're pioneers. I feel like we're ahead of the time. But also, why don't more corporations help us? And why can't we get more grants? Building community apparently isn't very sexy. Like, it's not top on the list for needs. But if you ask Edgar Kahn, he would say this is top on the list. especially with all the seniors we're gonna have in what, like 4 years? There's gonna be this huge boom of seniors. Here's time banking, a great solution for help at home, keeping seniors at home. It's so multifaceted, but I think you asked such a good question. Anybody else want to add to this? Why we're not all doing it?
If I could just throw in something real quick, a helpful concept that's I've noticed happening, cryptocurrencies. I'm not a fan of cryptocurrencies. I have my own, they are their own thing. I have my issues, but I think the advantage that we can ride is that cryptocurrencies have opened up the concept in the general public that there are other forms of money. And we can step into that gap that has been created and say, hey, look, here's another form of money. Let's use this one. Check it out.
Yeah, I love that, like riding on the tails of people thinking a little outside the box. I do feel like cryptocurrency is the same thing as money, because there's inflation and deflation and debt, and you either have it or you don't have it, which is time banking is, that currency is much different currency. It's like currency, even the word currency doesn't work, but that's what it is too. I mean, you could look at it that way. You could look at it as I'm using my hours I give in my community to receive things that I need. That's a currency. You're trading.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm so glad you're on this call, Neil, and I hope you'll stick with it. And it sounds like you could help us get there. And Marcella, I was going to say, if you could send me your email, I would love to hook you up with, like 800 people who could maybe help you with some of your questions, because I'm connected in the coordinators idea exchange, where we're just such a nice community on the Facebook. We have a Time for All time bank. If you're there, we're actually working on that time bank now. You're going to start hearing a lot more from the Time for All time bank. We really want to grow it. And that's a time bank for coordinators only. So it's like walking the talk. When Carrie, I hope she pays herself, rewards herself for time credits for coming and speaking and doing a presentation for this town hall. This is her time. So Carrie could then use her time credits to come stay at my house in Kent. See?
I've done it before.
Yeah.
And I will say, plug for Time for All. I just had a great exchange with somebody who posted recently on there. I was talking to Krista about it actually, and he really gave me some good insights about fiscal sponsorship options for our organization that needs to find a new one. So I highly recommend it.
Oh, Carrie, that's such good news. And guess what? Just like we do with the town halls, I think as we grow the Time for All time bank, and if you're interested in being part of that growing, we'd love to have you. But we're going to start collecting stories, just like the ones, so there'll be coordinator stories. How did this coordinator teach me to do this? Which led to that? Like, perfect. Oh, yay. Well, it's 5:15, and I think we will go ahead and stop the recording. Yes, I want to stop